Ladies and gentlemen, chess has a lot of different formats that you could consider fun. Some people like 10-second per player chess, 30-second per player chess, 1-minute blitz, maybe some rapid. But at the highest level, the most fun type of chess, universally agreed upon, is the team format in the open style. And what that means is you have a team of players and they take on another team of players. And what open style means is you don't know who's going to play who. A lot of top level events are round robin, so the pairings are predetermined. But the European Club Cup is one of the more exciting open team events that exists. The other one, of course, being the Olympiad. And the cool thing about the European Club Cup is that Magnus Carlsen participates. I don't know about every single year, but he's definitely participated this year because the tournament ended just a few hours ago. The player spent some time, some week or so, somewhere in Europe. I don't even know the city. It was a city that I've never heard of in my life. And in this video, I'm going to take you through just how much better Magnus Carlsen is than his colleagues. That's really the best way I can describe it. Absolutely no disrespect is intended. And I'm sorry if I look really yellow. I don't know if that's just on my monitor because I have like nightlight or something. But yeah, I look like I have jaundice on my monitor. Anyway, in yesterday's video, I didn't know that mosquitoes were insects. Today, I'm using big vocab words like jaundice. You never know what you're going to get on this channel. Okay, so Magnus played 6 games out of 7. His first round game was with the black pieces. He played against Nikita Meshkovs from Latvia, and it was a Catalan, all right? And it's always interesting to see what is going to happen in the games that Magnus kind of gets the most annoying and kind of suffocating lines played against him. You always kind of expect him to create winning chances. Well, what he does here against the Catalan is he plays this very solid setup. He doesn't take any of White's pawn in the center. He just plays like this. He wants to develop his bishop out this way, as is evident by his very next move. And here, Meshkovs, rather than playing rook c1, or not, well, actually, rook c1 would be a stupid move because that doesn't actually defend the pawn. Knight bd2 defends this pawn, b3 defends this pawn. Meshkovs plays cd5. So he clarifies the structure in the center, and then he plays this. And the amazing thing is about this variation, from basically this point forward, is that Black has almost never won a single game. Like, if you look in the database, it's a very provocative line, too, by Black, trying to get this bishop. Yeah, White's like, bro, you could go ahead and take this bishop. I do not care, because I'm going to take your bishop. And from this position, I think Black has literally never lost. Ever. Now, you might find some game online between two 1400s, yes, but at classical chess level, Black has never beaten White. I mean, can you imagine that there's like variations out there where a side just literally never wins? That seems depressing. Yeah, and Magnus kind of finds himself in this situation. It's sort of weird because I don't really know what Magnus thought was going to happen. Maybe Magnus just was sort of banking on this line not being played. Maybe the Catalan is just a really annoying opening to play against. Why doesn't everybody play the Catalan against Magnus, right? Make him take some unnecessary risk. Well, after the first 14 or 15 moves, you sort of kind of gave up on the fact that Magnus was going to ever win this game, because look at this position. And what's funny is that, I mean, it does look like a very annoying line. And Magnus could play on the C file, but he tries to keep pieces on the board, and he's like, all right, I'm going to defend. I'm going to let White put pressure on me, and really, Black just has no moves. Magnus tries to play G5, G4, doing all this stuff over here. White just doing a really nice job here, taking the play away from Black. And yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to really waste your time a whole lot more. It's a totally symmetrical pawn structure, A, B, D, E, F, G. And White's way more active than Black. And it took about 44 moves in this game of Magnus. But we're just always kind of hoping and praying that something will happen. Now, Black had absolutely nothing ever in this game. And the players repeated moves and made a draw. It happens. They say, Levy, what are you talking about? But you said that he crushed his upset. Well, I got to show you all the games. I'm not just going to conveniently ignore evidence, right? This is the court of, you're the court of law, all right? You're the court of public opinion, and we need to show you all the evidence for you to decide. This was game number 1. And Magnus lost like 3 points for this game, which is just hilarious. So, well, he might not find it funny. But now things are going to get a little bit different, all right? And at the end, by the way, I have a very magical game to show you as well. So E4, E5, and Magnus plays the Scotch opening, okay? He doesn't play in Italian, doesn't play the Spanish, plays the Scotch opening against Alexander Naumann, which I thought was very funny that he got an opponent whose last name was almost Niemann, but it was Naumann. It was like, nah, man. Alexander, nah, man. I am a child. Pawn takes d4, knight takes d4, and this line has been played many times. Okay, this position has been reached tens of thousands of times. Here, modern theory, modern theory might be h4, but theory has always been c4, and then black pins the pawn to the queen, and then white defends the pawn, and then black plays g6, a very sharp line. This is another move, but this move has been played maybe like 100 times. It's a very interesting move because it kind of gets in the way of everything, and it's not really clear just yet where the knight is going to go. Plus, your queen can now be attacked multiple times. And here in shocking fashion, Magnus Carlsen repeated moves. No, just kidding. He played queen e4. Black played f6, attacking the center, and this position has already never happened before. And this is where it gets even more goofy. After knight to b4, with very clear intentions of playing this. And by the way, if you play a3 here with white, there's the shocking move d5. If c takes d5, this is still on the way. This can't be taken because of queen e5 check and bishop takes queen. It's just a completely insane tactical position. So after knight b4, Magnus has to play king d1. This is his prep. I mean, it looks like after some moves from the opening that white is just a pawn down. Like, it's just 15 moves, white is a pawn down. Well, as it turns out, he wanted to be a pawn down, and he played b4. So he sacrifices a pawn, negates the development of his opponent's knight, wants to lock it in jail forever, then wants to play bishop b2, bishop d3, rook e1, and basically say, I have massive compensation for your pawn, and this is anything but easy for black to deal with. And black plays c5, giving back the advantage immediately. Now b5, and now bishop b7. So if you take this, I'm going to go here, right? Magnus here plays the move bishop d3, which is what we planned, and rook e1, hitting the king, and now the king gets out of the way. Now the knight gets out of the way, offering yet another pawn. So Magnus is offering a 2-pawn advantage to black because 4 of black's 5 active pieces, well, they're not active. They're literally on their home squares. I mean, you know, sometimes I say, like, oh, the pieces are on the back rank. Not only are those pieces on the back rank, they literally haven't moved, theoretically. They haven't moved. The knight technically hasn't moved. It's crazy. So instead of doing that, Alexander Naumann plays bishop d6, f4, and he still gives away this pawn. And Magnus doesn't even want to win anything back, just plays king c2. What? Bro, he's down 2 pawns. Like, the other dude has 7, he has 5. Here, Stockfish wants to start fighting back against the structure, right? Black plays g6, though. All right, white plays bishop b2. So far, Magnus has played, I think, the top line of the engine for 22 moves. Bishop takes f4. 3 pawns up for black. 3. Now, he didn't have to do that. He could have played f5, which is just not a human move at all because it runs directly into this. But that apparently was what Stockfish wanted. Instead, he grabs a 3rd pawn and says, well, you know what? I'm going to go on this roller coaster ride with Magnus. Magnus plays rook e2, removes the bishop, and now here comes rook f1. As you can see, things are about to get very unpleasant for black. Black took 1 too many pawns, and when you steal 1 time from the store, you might not get in trouble. You steal 2 times from the store, it's already bad. 3 times from the same store? Yeah, they're going to have a photo up on the wall of you. By the way, kid, don't steal. Don't. I'm just making a joke. All right, there's some crazy person watching this right now. Like, oh, are you saying I could steal? No, don't do that. What I'm saying is Magnus is going to punish his opponent. H4, getting all the resources involved. That pawn's the only thing in white's position, by the way. Only thing in white's position in 24 moves that hasn't moved. Everything else has gotten a turn. H4. With the intention to open up the F file. All right, if black plays the move H6 here, then white is going to play H5, securing an infiltration post for the bishop. It's really bad. All right, Naumann plays D6. Now we begin the chopping process. Knight E4, Knight D7, and knight grabs the F6 pawn. Now Magnus is only down 1 pawn with a devastating attack on the way. And he chops down the trees. He is now going to win the knight back, which means that he will now be down no material. And on top of all that, after he wins this, he is going to take this, and this pawn will march to a6 and remove the bishop from the game. And rather than dealing with any of that, after rook takes e5, black resigned. Magnus eviscerated his opponent. Eviscerated. That was literally a perfect game of chess. Maybe not by his standards, but for the average spectator, folks, This man showed up, played a line that's almost never been played before, moved his king to get out of danger, sacrificed the pawn, and then hydraulic pressed his opponent down to the back rank. And then he just kept sacrificing pawns. He just lost all his pawns. Now, granted, black shouldn't have taken on f4, but it doesn't matter. When you set practical difficulties for your opponent for over 20 moves, they're going to make a mistake. And Magnus gets the job done. All right, so we go to the next round. Now, in this round, he's playing a very strong grandmaster, Pentala Harikrishna, one of the best players in India and in the world. But he's like top 4, top 5 in India, right? So this one in English, Harikrishna plays c6 with the intention to play this very sharp variation, knight d4, d5, cd, queen d5. This has been played very frequently recently, as well as bishop g2 in the immediate d5. So Magnus plays the immediate d4. I've played this over the board myself. There's a lot of interesting lines here. Harikrishna gives this check, and the bishops just come off. And we see Magnus playing a way here that has never been played. So that's the thing about Magnus. He's always going to come with some sort of small wrinkle in the opening that's going to cause some practical difficulty. So here, chess games go bishop g2, castle, e3, knight e2. And the reason why it plays like this is big stable center, powerful bishop, very natural way of playing. Nobody plays e4, because why would you do that? You block your own bishop. That doesn't make any sense. The whole point is the bishop goes here, right? So Magnus obviously now develops the bit. What? What is it? What is this? I've never... What? What about his bishop? Well, that's the thing. Magnus shows up and forces you to swim in the deep water with him, all right? So now b5, very interesting idea from Harikrishna. The point is that if white takes, he's really not going to take a second time because knight takes e4, taking advantage of the bishop not being here, okay? So cb5, cb5, Magnus plays a3. Magnus just wants to play some sort of structure. a5. Computer like knight c6 here with ideas of b4 and also center pressure. Maybe black will also play d5 in the future, but Harikrishna plays a5 and Magnus castles, and Harikrishna continues throwing haymakers over there, but Magnus parks his horse in the center of the board. You'll notice the rooks are staring at each other. That happens for a little while, and finally the dust settles and we get to this position. Now, folks, if I were to ask you a question here, very interesting question. How does white get the knight in the game? Okay, this is just a nice question for intermediate beginner players. How does white get the knight into the game? A lot of you would look forward and go, oh, that's not possible. All right, well, knight c1, knight, something like this. Right. Totally agree with you. Knight c1 is very reasonable. Now, what if I say you can't move your knight? Hey, Levy, what are you talking about? Stop saying riddles. g4. Just advancing the fianchetto pawn in order to put the knight on g3 with various bad intentions of going over here. We don't know where the knight is going to go, but we certainly know that g7 looks soft. Okay. So now that the knight can't go to f5 or h5, well, it's going to go to e4. Okay. And now queen h6 might be on the way. Look at these dark squared weaknesses. The c file, controlled very nicely by white. Okay, we trade. Rook c5 defends my center pawn, improving my position slowly. Dropping back, covering the back rank. Maybe some rook c7 and rook c8 is on the way. And h4. Magnus throwing the pawns in front of his own king forward. And I'm talking really forward. Because here's the thing. If black takes, first of all, you got various tricks like rook b5 and queen g5. All right? But if black doesn't take and plays, I don't know, b3, white is going to go h6. This is a very common idea to suffocate the king and isolate this pawn for the endgame. So Harikrishna plays h6 himself and then takes on h5. But Magnus never had any intention to take back. Rook c8! Oh boy. If you trade queens with me, I'm going to take with check. If you take my rook, I'm going to take your queen. So the only move here is to defend the rook. But now chop, chop, and chop. And you notice that black's pawns are slowly sort of becoming very isolated. Bishop d5. And now I drop back and you're pinned. Now, Hari saw that. He didn't just hang a bishop. But the problem is it's already very difficult. For instance, if hg, somehow in a position of equal material, Magnus Carlsen is still delivering a mate, basically. It's like unbelievable. He's not going to win a mate. He's going to win a piece. But, right, so he wins the piece and now has to win this endgame. 4-on-2 in terms of pawns. Let's see if he's able to do it. How is he going to break through these pawns? It's just going to become a matter of moves. That's it. Because pawns can only move forward one at a time, which means every single move they create a weakness. And the good thing for Magnus is that this position, he's not going to play this move, but this position is unbreakable. Like, the Black King cannot do anything about this situation. The Black King really has to worry about over here. And the Black King tries his best, but his best is not good enough. White blockades the pawns, and White wins one of them. White will win the next one, and that's it. B3 is the game sealer. And it's very important you play B3 here, by the way, because if you take this pawn on G4, Black plays B3 himself, and your pawn and bishop do not coordinate anymore. Bishop D5, King D2, and look at how tragic this is. Your bishop is blocking your own pawn from moving, and that game ends in a draw. So rather than taking, Magnus plays B3, and this is the point. King G4, King F2, King H3. Black is now out of moves. This is what we call Zugzwang, and the game is over. Magnus making it look effortless. I'm sure it took effort, but he makes it look effortless. Next game I have for you. This was now Magnus with the black pieces against Anton Korolev, one of the best players from Ukraine. This game got really wild really fast because it was an E3 Queen's Gambit. So it's like kind of a London, but then Black plays a reverse London and White plays this. Now, the funny thing is about the move Bishop A3 is that it's intended to prevent E6 because Black would take and potentially ruin, White would take the Black Bishop and potentially ruin the castling of Black, right? So, since Magnus can't play the move E6, he has to come up with something else. So Magnus plays the move E6 and doesn't come up with something else. He's like, okay, so I won't castle. All right. Now, you think you're really clever, right? Like, oh, look at you. Oh, I can't castle, right? Yeah, it's kind of a problem. King is not going to get the safety, right? Who's laughing now? Huh? Who's laughing now? What are you going to do to me? H5. Yeah, and if you think you're so tough, C4, H4. Oh, you can castle. Oh, wow. Yeah, H5, H4, buddy. And here comes knight e4, and here comes rook h6. Wait a minute. Like, Magnus is playing this like a bullet game. I mean, he's literally playing this position as you would play a bullet game, where you just say, okay, well, I'm going to leave my king on f8, and I'm just going to go for the kill here. Now, the computer here is just a scumbag. It's like, yeah, h3, rook g6, yeah, king h1, there's nothing. And the computer's just like, I don't see anything. I don't get it. I don't understand what's so impressive about this attack. Okay, cool. That's nice. Korolev plays takes, and knight d2, removing a defender of the king, but trying to fight back against the center. Now, Magnus takes on c3, leaving this knight kind of useless, and activates his queen. So now this pawn is doing a decent job patrolling. You'll notice that Magnus isn't rushing with the move h3, because the last thing that he needs is White to build up a very powerful fortress. It's going to be almost impossible to try to break through on g3, and it's even so scummy that the computer says g4 is better for White, which is absurd. There's no en passant here, by the way, because the pawns are not next to each other, just in case you're confused. That rule used to confuse me when I was a kid. All right, Korolev does it this way, but what about his knight? How is he going to get his knight back into the game? Rook e7. Oh, look at this. Look at what Korolev does. Knight c4. So if you take, rook f5 comes in, and actually White is very happy. Stability has been restored to the position. But what if you don't take the knight, and what if you just play queen to e6? Now, if the knight gallops forward once again, I'm simply asking the question of where it's going, and I gotta tell you, it's not going anywhere. It's completely trapped. So I don't quite get what knight c4 was all about, but Korolev just goes back. Okay, there's no knight d3 now, so there's no fork, right? Remember a long time ago I told you that Magnus wasn't going to play the move h3? Well, now he does. Why does he do it now? Because his position is equipped to remove the light square defender. A while ago when I told you about this move h3, where was that? If we go back, somewhere here. Black was ill-equipped to remove the light-squared bishop from the board. But the way the game is currently going, he is absolutely equipped to get rid of the bishop, and we will be seeing bishop e4 very promptly. But first, what about this free pawn? Like, and then he trades, and now he kicks the rook out, but the rook is trapped. Every square is occupied. What? So we have knight a4, which counterattacks the knight, and threatens to hit this and this, and I don't exactly get it. Magnus just moves the bishop out of the way. The rook is completely trapped. And Magnus refuses to take it. He's not taking the piece. Queen g2 is mate. And now Magnus still refuses to take the piece. The rook can now break free. But this rook, after serving its purpose attacking the king, rotates over and starts to attack the bishop. The knight has survived the apocalypse. The rook survived like 10 moves of being captured. And Magnus just doesn't allow his opponent to get back into the game whatsoever. Bishop d3, finally he picks up material. He brings the knight back. And he infiltrates with his rooks. Rook, not rooks. Defends his pawn in the center and is ready with g6. And in this position, Anton Korobov resigns because, well, this king cannot be protected. This king is going to be completely safe. None of these pieces can move anywhere. Like, they can't move. If you play something like knight takes b6, I go here, I'm simply mating you. Look, it's m5. Magnus made this look so easy. So easy. He was like, oh, that's a very clever opening idea to not let me castle. Oh, that's really... He just went after his opponent. He went after Korobov like Korobov hadn't paid him rent in 6 months. I mean, it's just... He made it look so simple. In the next round, Magnus was paired against Marco Baldauf from Germany, once again. Not the same player, but... And Magnus was not interested in playing a London, a Torre attack, or a mainline. He plays knight bd2, looking to play e4 against this and try to get a Peer's defense. But instead of that, he just basically plays a weird Fianchetto system. Now, up until this point in the game, I think the players were following Caruana Abdusattorov from some online game, or Abdusattorov Caruana from some online game. But basically, as always from the opening, it's just a unique position with some sort of wrinkles in it, and Magnus will try to apply the squeeze, right? So let's do this. 12 moves have been played per player. Why is it +1? How did Magnus already get such a sizable advantage? He got a sizable advantage because he has higher rated bonus. He's 350 points higher rated, so he gets... No, I'm just kidding. It's because Black doesn't have a good home for this bishop. So if this bishop were to live on f5, it very well could be chased out with g4. But the major problem is Black doesn't have any fight in the center. Black is actually losing the battle in the center very convincingly. And because of that, White will just clearly advance down the center of the board. Black just can't move any piece into the middle. So after h3, White gets the bishop pair, but Black gets some center space. Okay? But Magnus now starts to remove the knight. The knight sticks around, the bishop kind of comes back. Check. Here. So what happens if a high-level grandmaster is left alone to sort of battle for himself? He is going to play h4, as always. And now the very tough question, does Black play h5? Does Black play h5? Well, he chooses not to. He plays a5, now Magnus plays b5, knight goes out. Now, Magnus could continue with h5. I'm actually very curious why he didn't continue with h5, but he chooses knight e5 first. We have a capture, and Black is looking to exchange pieces. Now, if White just were to trade all the pieces, White would lose his advantage very quickly. But no, he plays h5 now. And once again, he might take, but he also very well could play h6. For example, knight takes e5. Let's say queen takes e5. What does Black do here? If Black continues to try to trade pieces, I have rook c8, knight c8, h6 with the threat of mate. If you try to defend my threat of mate, I have check and I'm going to get in, or I'm going to get in with my light-squared bishop. So the pawn on h6 for White is going to be a serious problem for Black, which is why Black takes it, damaging his structure. Magnus takes, plays, and trades the rooks. And now we have this endgame. 5 pawns each, potentially scattered position. Knight c4 removes the queen. Queen d2 attacks the pawn on a5. Black defends the pawn on a5. Magnus centralizes the queen, attacking the pawn on b6, not letting the knight move to d6, because then you would take the pawn for free. Now Black has no moves. a4 freezes the pawn structure on the queen side. Queen e5 avoids a queen trade and centralizes the queen even further. e4 brings another pawn to the table, removes some important squares, and clears the e5 square for an attack once the queen moves out of the way. That is exactly what Magnus now does, removing the knight, and here Magnus plays e6, making Black choke on a fishbone, because Black has 3 unpleasant choices. Go here and basically get mated, capture the pawn on e6, leaving all of these squares for attack for the knight and the queen and the bishop, or do nothing and allow white to take and strip the king of more defense. Black chooses one of the three horrible options. Check here, check here. The pawn is now lost. You cannot do anything about this queen. Bishop h5 is on the way, knight e5 is on the way, and you have absolutely zero counterplay. Here comes the bishop. You still cannot get out of this danger with black, because if you take the bishop for free, I grab a pawn with check. If you play knight g7, I win your queen. So you have to go here. Now I take your knight. You are only down one pawn, but your king is wide open. And what Magnus does is give a check and plays queen to d4. And the point is that now black is out of defenses. Black's pawn will now be lost. Black's king is in constant danger. And white is always one move away from trading this down into an endgame. This also, as long as it would take to win, is obviously a completely winning endgame. This is going to be harder to win, but is still probably a completely winning endgame. And rather than suffer, Baldov just throws in the towel. That's just 4 straight wins against grandmasters of an average rating of like 2,600. Now, I told you at the end I had a magical game for you, right? If you stuck around, if you had it in you to stick around, this was a very exciting game. This was the final round of action. Parham Maksudlu played a Queen's Gambit exchange variation. Very interesting to see Magnus not playing bishop b4. He probably did not anticipate playing a Nimso. That's what I expected. He probably anticipated this. So he did not want to play a Nimso Indian, and instead he plays an ultra-combative line of the Queen's Gambit declined. So in this position, there are many lines, many lines by black, but this one, looking for an exchange of dark-squared bishops, is very rare. And as you can see, we don't get any trades at all, and Magnus just keeps every piece on the board. So the only thing that's been traded is pawns. And now the sides really go to battle. Knight f4, and a very common idea in these positions with white is to play for e4. And Parham does that with f3, b5 from Magnus, knight c4 from Magnus, and here comes e4 from Parham. So this is just going to be a scrap, all right? This is going to be a high-level chess kickboxing match. Yes, I'm talking kicks too. All right, they kicking, they punching. No elbows, though. Magnus plays b4. I mean, it's a slugfest. Pawns can capture all over the board. Parham plays ed5. All right, Magnus grabs the rook. We have a trade. But suddenly he realizes that if he takes on d5, well, I mean, he's just simply going to lose the pawn. So his idea here was to drop back. This knight is still hanging. The pawn is going to take here, right? But Magnus is a pawn down. Like, at the end of the day, Magnus is just straight up down a pawn. Parham is actually winning this game. Rook b8. Knight jumps into c5. Here, the best move by white was rook e5. With the idea that if you play f6 here, trying to remove the rook, yeah, the rook just goes back. The pawn can't go back. It's very fascinating. So the rook would have just lived there. Knight c5 played by Parham. Knight b5 played by Magnus, trying to go for this, and this, and this, and also this. Just insane how many pieces see each other on this board. Parham takes, and this is kind of like the fading of the advantage. He should not have traded the bishop pair away. Rook b8 back, and basically Parham's like, all right, I'm going to freeze the position. I'm going to let Magnus chill out so he can't get any more counterplay. And look what Magnus does. He's like, yo, Parham, you could push the pawn, attack my bishop, and threaten to fork me. Go ahead and do your worst, because I have rook c8. All right? Rook c8. You're pinned. Bishop b6. Queen d6. You can play all these fancy moves. Check. Now we have to trade. Now I've equalized. So Parham was much better for several moves. What he shouldn't have done, I guess knight c5 was a natural move, but in this position, he should have not taken on b5. Once again, in both of these moments, the best plan for white was to play rook e5, trying to stabilize the 5th rank. I mean, it's an absurd-looking move, right? It was the best move there, and it was also the best move here. No, not after bishop takes b5. I apologize. After rook e5. I mean, rook e5 is just a crazy-looking idea. So, again, if you get attacked, apparently you can just sack the rook. If bishop takes e5, queen e5, apparently this is winning for... I mean, that's hard. That's tough to just put your rook there and be like, yeah, I'm going to lose it. It was the only thing that Stockfish could find for white. So, I mean, I'm sure if you let Stockfish run, it would have tried to come up with another plan. But Yeah, Magnus was worse in this game against Parham. He played a very provocative way, and he was punished for it for about 15 moves. But ultimately, the players straight down. And, I would have liked to show you more dominant victories from start to finish. But this one just ends in a draw because no one is going to break through. And so Magnus finished the event with 5 out of 6, undefeated. And he gained a whopping 2.8 rating points from this event, finishing around 2859. I don't know how the guy is going to get to 2900. Also, games like this just make me wonder, do we just need a separate title once you're past like 2700? Like, it's crazy to me that Grandmaster is just open-ended, but I don't want to... I don't want to upset any Grandmasters that work their entire life for the Grandmaster title, and now there's another one, and it's like, what the heck? I don't have the highest title in chess, but I mean, Magnus just makes it look so easy. It's amazing. Hope you enjoyed the video. I will be making some more European Club Cup recaps. I have some more ideas in mind. There was a lot of really cool performances, and I'll see you in the next one. Get out of here.